Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. Before I let you get on to your regularly scheduled video, I need to acknowledge that I made an error in the video you're about to see. Just that little. It regards the actual assembly of the motor mount tube, which is very important. I actually put the thrust ring or the engine block in the wrong location. It should be above the engine hook, not below the engine hook, and I put it below. So that actually makes the engine tube too short to fit the recommended E engines that it would fly with. It can still fly with a D. I would just have to modify the spacer that comes with it, and it should fit. It also can fly. I tested a composite engine in it, and it fit just fine, so I could fly with that. So I just wanted to get that out there in the open. So as you're watching this video, if you're building this kit, or if you plan to build this kit in the future, don't follow how I did it. Pay attention to what the instructions that come with the kit. Make sure you follow those. So I didn't catch the error until editing, and by then it was too late. It would involve completely ripping it apart, and it'd be easier just to buy a new kit. So I might still end up doing that, but I don't know. But in the end, it'll at least still be a good display piece, if nothing else. But like I said, it should fly on a composite engine just fine. So I'll finish this here and let you get on with the video. Thank you. Hello everybody, I'm Adam. Welcome back to my channel, and today is an exciting day. We're starting a new build. When I first saw this kit would be available, I was very excited. I wasn't able to get it right away, but it is back, and I have Estes. Let's try to reduce the glare here. Estes Mars Longship. Destination Mars Longship. Sci-fi inspired design. Kind of looking forward to the human exploration of Mars. I don't know how common it is in our hobby that we are also kind of science geeks, also sci-fi geeks. I am both. I am closely paying attention to I've always had an interest in human space travel. So now that the U.S. is getting back into their human space exploration launched from the U.S., I'm very excited about that. The upcoming Artemis program to explore the moon again and beyond to eventually, hopefully, Mars. Very excited about. But today we're starting this. So, and without any further ado, let's get into the build. So the first thing I always do is, well, open the box. It's usually a good place to start. Okay, so if you have seen any of my videos before, you will know I like to pull out the instructions. I always read through them ahead of time to see if there are anything weird about them, anything different. Most especially with Estes and a lot of other manufacturers, they like to put pages in that they intend you to use as some of your templates or even build portions. For example, for this particular one, their page 2 has some templates for aligning different parts. The body tube, the fin alignment for the bottom of the body tube, also the shock cord mount is on page 2. I don't like cutting apart my own instructions, so once I have them out, I will photocopy the pages that need to be cut. And this one I actually made 2 copies. One so I could actually cut out the 2 parts here, but still have a fully intact sheet that I can use for a fin template. Yeah, all of these templates here. So these 2 pieces I will be able to cut these and not mess up the instructions. But for now I'll set those aside and we'll continue on. One more thing I do like to do is, as I pull the parts out of the box, mark them off against the instruction sheet. It'll tell me if I am somehow missing something. So that's the body tube. Good. Now this bag has several pieces in it together. So be careful opening them, you don't want to scratch anything. So the nose cone, not your typical cone-shaped nose cone, very specific to this kit. A tail cone piece. This has other pieces on it. We'll actually have to cut this apart. We'll do that in a later stage. But just to know that we have that piece together. And then this bag, I won't open right now. I can see everything that's in it. It has our elastic shock cord, our parachute, our orange spacer. It has the engine hook retainer. It has the engine hook, our launch lug, and the engine block. And that should be everything in this bag. And in this bag, which I will need to open, yellow spacer tube. This doesn't become a permanent part of the rocket. This just helps you align everything up as you build the motor mount. So we'll get to that. I forgot to mark that. The motor mount tube, engine mount tube, motor mount tube. I've heard it called the same thing, or different. It's the same thing, different words. A large section of a body tube. This becomes part of the fin assembly, so we'll mark that. A little plastic bag of the different plastic parts that get glued to the body. So there's 3 each of 2 different parts that are in that bag. And we have our balsa sheet, laser cut fins. So we'll mark that, and we have on the other side, come on. Okay, cardstock sheet, also laser cut. This has our 3 centering rings and then some cardstock details that get glued together. And we have, set that aside. large decal sheet and a smaller decal sheet. Where's my pencil? There. And these little yellow sheets of paper, they just include to help protect the decals while they're in shipping. They're not vital to anything right now. They also have included separate finishing instructions for how to do it. They usually have this in the kit as well. This is nice to have. It kind of zooms in a little bit of detail on where to apply the decals, what specific paint they recommend using. Goes on both sides there. You don't have to follow their exact instructions on finishing. This is just how they designed it to go. If you go a different route, by all means, you're free to do so. So I'm going to put the decals back in the bag to keep them a little more protected and clean up my area a little bit, and then we will get on with the build, and then we'll see you again in a moment. Okay, the first step in this build will be to assemble the motor mount. For that, we'll need our actual engine mount tube, our spacing tube, and we'll have to open this bag. Engine hook. The orange spacer we won't need until we actually launch, so I'll put that back in when I get the other parts out. And the green engine block. So to continue on, I have everything I need. No, I need the centering rings. I'm going to go ahead and get those cut out. Where did I put them? Sorry about this. Okay, one of the problems with clear safety glasses is they're clear. You can't always see them. But it is somewhat important to use safety glasses when using your hobby knife. Again, the steel is pretty strong. It's not likely to break, but it can. And if it breaks, you definitely don't want that to hit you. Protect your eyes. Eyes are important. So if you can protect them, do so. There. Set those aside. We'll need those later. Okay. We just need the rings. We don't need the cardstock that was filling the center. So toss those out. Now pay attention to these. There are 3 rings, and 2 of them have little notches cut out. There's the notch. There's the notch. Can you see that? And the reason there's a notch is because we're using an engine hook. The notches give the engine hook room to flex. There's 2 sizes of notch. This one is a little bit bigger than this one. So this is the one that's farthest to the bottom of the tube. This one's the middle, this one's the top. So you'll want to make sure you're paying attention to that as you're assembling. So what I like to do is line them up in order from left to right, bottom to top. Whatever way works best for you, please use that method. I will make a couple of marks on the motor mount. Let's see, I need to do 1 inch from the end. And this is a really handy tool. It's from Estes Tube Marking Guide, Ultimate Tube Marking Guide. I forget which one it's called. Very handy. It's got a little slide you can set to whatever measurements you need. And then a hole here will take some narrower pencils. And then I just like to spin it through and get a marker all the way around. So 1 inch, 2.5 inches. And then 3 1/4. Yep. So as you're picking up, putting down, try to make sure you're picking it back up and laying it down in the same orientation. That's why you saw me hesitate there. One tip I have done, I neglected to do it on this time, but I'll do it right now. Just take your pencil and draw a little arrow. And that points towards the, I don't know if that's showing up, the arrow points towards the front end. That way you know what it is. So and then on the yellow tube, we'll make a mark 1/2 inch from the end. And then what this will do, when we're gluing the engine block in place, this will let us leave 1/2 inch of the rocket engine still exposed. Okay, so I have my engine block and my spacing tool, and I will, with the notch there, I will get my engine block glued in place. So I'm just use my little dowel here to get the glue all the way in there. If you keep the dowel spinning, that helps with preventing it from dripping too much. There. I'm gonna add a little bit more. That's good. Got plenty of glue in there. So I'm going to load that in. And I'm actually going to help. I'm going to use my engine hook as a little bit of a guide as well to keep it from going too far. And then I'll push it down, and I can see where my engine hook is. And that is where the engine block will stop. And then pull the yellow spacer out before it gets dried in there. And if you see any excess glue on the bottom end, try to wipe it up. This looks pretty good. and then otherwise try to wipe out. I'm going to leave it like that for a little bit. Clean this off. And wipe out a little bit of that excess glue that's in there. There's a little bit too much. You want some. It's basically creating a fillet of sorts in there, and it'll dry in there. But if it's too much, it'll take too long to dry. And while that's going, I'll take our centering rings and with the engine hook in place, the one with the deeper notch goes on first, and it can slide right over the end. Mostly. Sometimes you will need to shave a little bit around where those notches were that held them in place. Let's do that very carefully. Made tolerance on these very, very tight. And I don't want to bend them to get them to fit. There. And then line up the notch so that it goes around the engine hook. And I'm going to go ahead and get all three, or at least the first two, the bottom one and the center one, on, then glue them in place, and then glue the third one. That way I'm not messing with a whole bunch of extra glue. Now, before I put this one on, that's right, this has to go on. This actually holds the engine hook down a little bit there. So put the rear engine ring, or rear centering ring, then the engine hook retainer, and then the center ring on. Again, I'm gonna just shave a little bit of that off. And slip that on. And then spin it a little bit to line it up with the centering ring, or the engine hook, and slide it over the hook. So I'm going to take my glue and do a line of glue on there, and that's the bottom line. And then this centering ring will go on that. because they made these tolerances very, very tight. So try to make sure that the centering ring is perpendicular to the tube, and wipe off any of the excess glue. And the reason the ring isn't further down is so that you can still flex the hook to get the engine in and out. One way to tell if your ring is not crooked, I like to just close one eye and look at the ring as I spin the tube, and you can watch if the ring is wobbling, and then I'll show you where it needs a little bit of correction. There. And then another line of glue, very thin, and I'm going to spread this out a little bit. This goes for the retainer ring, so I'm going to spread that around so that it's a little thinner, covers more area. And then slide that on. And then any of that excess you can wipe off. That one looks good. Okay. And the center ring goes on the next line. So a little glue there to hold it. Do a good smear it around, and then work this ring down to that. And again, a little spinny trick. Adjust it. Yeah, looks good. Wipe that excess down. And I am going to run another little bead on this side to act as a little bit of a fillet. So that both sides have some glue, and then just run the excess off. There. And then the rearmost ring goes right to the end. So you can add a little bit of glue. Actually, first I'm going to make sure it fits. Does need a little bit of help. Important to dry fit pieces before you put glue on. Now with wood glue you've got some fair amount of working time because it takes time to dry. But still, best to make sure you've got the right fit before you put glue on. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to run thin bead of glue right at the end and thin it out a little with my finger. Wipe off the access there. And again, this is the ring that has no notch. And that just goes right on the end. That side on. There. And again. Little trick to spin it and watch it wobble and try to correct that. A little bit there. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and then we'll pick it up again in the next build, the next part of the build. Okay, so thank you. Thank you for joining me on this part. I will let the engine mount dry and then we'll move on to the next part of the build. Thank you again, and I'll see you next time.